Chapter 20. The Escape. The trash folder had no doors. That was by design. The Pulse had built this partition as a one-way receptacle. Things went in, nothing came out. The threshold I'd been carried through by the Sentinels wasn't a door in any architectural sense. It was a valve, a data structure that allowed write access from the network side and denied read access from the partition side. You could push data in, you couldn't pull it out. The trash folder was a lobster trap, scaled to the size of a minor universe. Etta explained this while I stood at the edge of the expanse, looking at the place where the threshold had been. From this side, it was invisible. No vertical plane of darkness, no seam, no indication that the boundary between the trash folder and the broader syntax existed at all. Just the featureless black ground meeting the featureless black distance, seamless and indifferent. The partition walls aren't physical, Etta said. She stood beside me, leaning slightly on my arm, not from weakness, though she was weak, but from the pragmatic understanding that her coherence was unreliable, and having something solid to lean on reduced the processing cost of staying upright. They're logical, code-based barriers written into the system's architecture at the deepest level. You can't walk through them because the code says you can't. It's like trying to walk through a wall in a video game. The geometry isn't what stops you. The rules are. And deresolution unwrites rules, I said. Deresolution unwrites code. The partition walls are code. So, theoretically, yes, you can dissolve the barrier, but dissolving it from inside the trash folder means unwriting the partition's containment protocols, which are among the most heavily reinforced code structures in the entire system. The Pulse doesn't want things escaping its garbage dump. The walls here are thick, dense, multiple layers of redundant security, each one designed to regenerate if the layers above it are breached. How many layers? When I was last able to scan the partition boundary, about 3 months ago, before my resolution dropped too far for detailed code reading, I counted 17. 17 layers of containment code, each one designed to regenerate, each one a wall I'd have to unwrite while the layers below it tried to rebuild the layers above. It's a race, I said. It's a race. You dissolve faster than the system regenerates, or the walls heal, and you've wasted energy you can't afford to spend. And if the Pulse detects the breach attempt, it can divert processing power to reinforce the containment in real time, at which point the regeneration rate exceeds anything your deresolution can match, and you're stuck in here until the forced reboot protocol activates. How long before the forced reboot? Etta glanced at the thin data thread above her circle, the spider silk connection to the broader network that gave her blurry, delayed glimpses of the world outside. The fragments I'm getting are confused. The Pulse is under stress. The degradation is accelerating. The Sentinels are drawing significant power, and something is happening in the upper syntax that I can't resolve clearly. Explosions, energy discharges. It might be the nulls fighting back. She paused. Best estimate, the Pulse initiates the forced reboot within 6 to 8 hours. 6 to 8 hours. To breach 17 layers of containment code, escape the trash folder, navigate the syntax with Sentinels in the tunnels, reach the core, and perform the most precise surgical operation in the history of human civilization, with a fragmented grandmother as my guide, and a power I'd been using for less than 2 weeks. Let's start, I said. I approached the partition boundary the way Adira had taught me to approach the lattice, not with force, but with awareness. I closed my eyes, reached for the field, found the warmth, let the I am here expand outward from my center, not as a weapon, but as a sensor, a wave of perception that washed across the featureless expanse and broke against something I couldn't see but could feel. The wall, it was there, about 6 meters from where I stood, a vertical plane of code so dense it felt like standing next to a glacier. The cold wasn't physical, it was architectural. The containment protocols radiated a kind of anti-presence, a "you are not here" signal that pushed against my deresolution field with the blunt, passive authority of a thing that had been told to stay and intended to stay until the universe disagreed. I pressed closer. The field met the wall and spread across its surface, reading the structure the way fingers read Braille. And I felt the layers, 17 of them, nested inside each other like the rings of a tree, each one a complete containment protocol, each one capable of regenerating independently, each one reinforced by the layers below and above. A fortress made of rules. The outermost layer was the simplest, a basic access denial protocol, the digital equivalent of a locked door. I could feel its code signature clearly. Clean. Straightforward. A single function, deny exit. I unwrote it. The field pushed into the layer, found its structure, and dissolved it, thread by thread, function by function, the code unravelling under my attention, like a knot being picked apart. It took about 4 seconds. The layer vanished. The wall didn't change. 16 more layers, each one denser than the last, each one already registering the breach and beginning to signal the pulse's security infrastructure. The second layer is regenerating the first, Etta said. She was sitting on the ground nearby, conserving energy, her eyes closed, but her code-reading ability, the deeper, more fundamental version of the same skill that powered my de-resolution, still active, still feeding her information about the partition's architecture. You need to dissolve Layer 2 before the regeneration of Layer 1 is complete, or you'll be fighting the same battle twice. I reached for Layer 2. Denser, more complex. The code structure wasn't a single function, but a network of interlocking functions, redundant, self-referencing, designed to resist exactly the kind of sequential dissolution I was attempting. Each thread I unwrote was referenced by 3 others, and removing it triggered a cascade of error checks that slowed my progress like running through water. 8 seconds, Layer 2 dissolved. But behind me, at the surface of the wall where Layer 1 had been, I could feel the regeneration, a faint, spreading warmth, the ghost of the first layer growing back, thread by thread, from the template stored in the layers below. A race, Etta was right. I was dissolving from the outside in. The system was rebuilding from the inside out, and the deeper I went, the denser the layers got and the longer each dissolution would take. Layer 3, 12 seconds. The code was adaptive. It shifted beneath my field, restructuring itself in real time to resist the specific pattern of dissolution I was using. I had to change my approach. Instead of unwriting thread by thread, I found the layer's logic center, the core function that gave the rest of the structure its coherence, and dissolved that first. The rest collapsed without it. Faster, but the effort was greater. The third frequency, the unlocking, the opening, stirred in my chest, and I felt a pull, an instinct to open the layer rather than destroy it. But opening took more energy than destroying, and I couldn't afford to burn reserves I'd need at the core. Layer 4, 15 seconds, Layer 5, 20. The layers were getting exponentially more complex, and the regeneration behind me was catching up. Layers 1 and 2 were fully restored now, and Layer 3 was rebuilding fast. I was cutting through the wall, but the wall was growing back like scar tissue over a wound. Faster, Silas, Etta said. Not urgently, factually, the voice of an engineer reading gauges. Layer 6, 30 seconds. My hands were shaking again. The de-resolution field was burning hot in my chest, consuming the nameless resource at a rate that made the edges of my vision swim. Sweat ran down my face. The featureless black ground was hard beneath my feet, and the grey light was flickering, or maybe my eyes were flickering. Hard to tell. Layer 7, 45 seconds. The code here was alien, not the clean logical architecture of the outer layers, but something evolved, grown, the pulse's own additions to a containment system that had been upgrading itself for decades. The functions were tangled, recursive, self-modifying. Unwriting one thread caused 2 others to mutate into new configurations. It was like fighting a hydra at the code level. The regeneration has restored through layer 4, Etta reported. You're losing ground. Layer 8. I was halfway through. 9 more layers. And the inner layers would be the worst, the oldest, the most deeply embedded, the foundation of the entire containment architecture. At my current rate of dissolution, accounting for the accelerating complexity and the steady drain on my reserves, I'd burn through my D-resolution capacity around layer 12 or 13. 5 layers short. The math didn't work. Again. The same problem as the 70% accuracy rate. The same canyon between where I was and where I needed to be. Except I stopped dissolving, pulled the field back, stood in the 8-layer deep wound I'd carved into the partition wall, breathing hard, surrounded by the shimmering residue of dissolved code, and I thought. The D-resolution unwrites code. The third frequency unlocks it. 2 tools. I've been using one, the destructive one, the blunt one, the one that consumed energy at an unsustainable rate. What if I use the other? Etta, I said. The containment layers, are they compressed? A pause. She opened her eyes. The grey sharpened, focused, turned inward, code reading at a depth I couldn't see. Yes, she said slowly. The inner layers are heavily compressed. The pulse stores redundant containment code in compressed archives, standard system optimization. Less processing overhead for code that's rarely needed. And compressed code can be decompressed. I'm not suggesting I decompress the containment walls. That would strengthen them, expand their code base, make them harder to dissolve. I was thinking fast. The connections forming in my head were new and fragile and glowing, like the data shards in the circle. I'm suggesting I decompress the regeneration templates. The inner layers are rebuilding the outer layers from stored templates, right? Compressed blueprints that the system unpacks and deploys when a breach is detected. Correct. Each layer contains a compressed copy of the layers above it, used for rebuilding. But what if I decompress those templates wrong? Not unlock them, untangle them. The compression algorithm holds the data in a specific configuration. If I use the third frequency to release the data from its compression without preserving the original structure, scramble it, fragment it, turn the neat little blueprint into a cloud of disorganized code. The regeneration templates would be useless, Etta said. Her voice had changed. The rough, mended texture was still there, but beneath it, a new frequency. The frequency of a designer watching someone use her tools in a way she hadn't anticipated. The layers couldn't rebuild because the blueprints they're rebuilding from would be nonsense, garbage data. The outer layers would stay dissolved. And I only have to dissolve each layer once. No race, no regeneration, just dissolution. She stopped. Recalculated, the code reader's eyes running the math that my gut was already celebrating. That's theoretically possible. The third frequency interacts with compression at a structural level. We saw that with the data shards. If you can direct it specifically at the regeneration templates within each layer without disrupting the layer itself prematurely. Etta, yes? Is it possible or isn't it? The grey eyes, my grandmother's eyes, the eyes that had written the world's soul and watched it eat itself for 7 decades. It shouldn't be, she said, but you keep doing things that shouldn't be. So, yes, I believe it's possible. For you. I turned back to the wall. 8 layers down, 9 to go, and behind me, 4 layers already rebuilt, the regeneration templates humming with their compressed blueprints, ready to restore everything I'd dissolved. I reached for the 9th layer, found it, dense, complex, evolved, but inside it, nested in the code like a pearl in an oyster, the compressed template. A tiny, tightly wound packet of data containing the blueprints for layers 1 through 8, the regeneration engine, the wall's immune system. I didn't unwrite it, I untangled it. The third frequency reached into the compression and pulled. Not apart, loose, like untying a knot by finding the right strand and easing it free. The template resisted. The compression algorithm fought to maintain its structure, the code tightening around itself like a fist. But the third frequency was patient, insistent. It didn't force, it found. Found the seams in the compression, the places where the data was weakest, where the algorithm's grip was loosest, and it opened those places gently, precisely, one strand at a time. The template decompressed, but not into a blueprint, into noise. The data, freed from its compression without guidance, without the orderly decompression that the system expected, expanded chaotically. Fragments of containment code scattered in every direction, losing their structural relationships, their functional connections, their meaning. In 5 seconds, the template went from a neat blueprint to a cloud of digital confetti. Beautiful, useless. The regeneration behind me stuttered, stopped. The restored layers, 1 through 4, held for a moment, then began to dissolve on their own, their maintenance code deprived of the templates they needed to sustain themselves. Like a fire losing its fuel. "It's working," Etta said, the engineer's voice, the designer's satisfaction. "The outer layers are collapsing. Regeneration has ceased." I dissolved layer 9, found its template, untangled it, moved to layer 10. Dissolve, untangle. Layer 11, layer 12. The process was still consuming energy, the de-resolution for the dissolution, the third frequency for the untangling. But the rate was sustainable now. No race, no regeneration, just steady, systematic work, cutting through the containment wall, one layer at a time, while the wall forgot how to rebuild itself behind me. Layer 13, 14, 15. The code was ancient here, the deepest layers, the original containment protocols, written in a style I recognized. Not the pulse's evolved, organic, self-modifying architecture. Something cleaner, more deliberate, more human. "These are yours," I said. "The innermost layers were part of the original trash folder design," Etta confirmed. "I wrote them 73 years ago." A pause. The weight of a woman watching her own work be dismantled by her own bloodline. They were meant to contain decommissioned data, not people, never people. I dissolved layer 16, found its template, untangled it. The compressed data scattered like startled birds. Layer 17, the last one, the deepest, the foundation of the entire containment system. A single, elegant function, written in a coding style so clean it looked like calligraphy. One line, one command, the root instruction from which all 16 layers above had grown. Contain, one word, one function, the original command that had defined this space as a boundary, a prison, a lobster trap, a junkyard for the things the system wanted to forget. I looked at it with the de-resolution field, felt its structure, simple, perfect, the work of a brilliant engineer at the height of her powers, writing a single line of code that would hold for 73 years and counting. I looked at Etta. She was standing now, leaning on nothing. The translucent hand, the flickering arm, the fading edges, all of it still present, still degrading. But her eyes were clear, and her back was straight, and she was watching me with the expression of a woman who had built a wall and was asking her grandson to tear it down. "Do it," she said. I unwrote the word. Contain dissolved, letter by letter. The simplest code I'd ever unwritten. One function, one command, one wall. The partition boundary fell. Not with a sound, not with a flash. The wall simply wasn't. The featureless black distance that had seemed to extend forever in every direction suddenly had depth, texture, direction. The trash folder's flat, grey-lit expanse opened onto something I could feel with my field, the vast, humming, living architecture of the Pulse's network. Channels and conduits and data streams, pulsing with gold and blue, green and red, flowing in every direction, carrying the lifeblood of a system that managed 10 million people and was slowly, steadily dying. The code of the world, right there, open, and I could feel it, not just at the boundary, everywhere. The moment the partition wall fell, the de-resolution field expanded. not outward, not like a bomb, but into the data streams, into the channels. The field touched the code and the code responded, and suddenly I wasn't standing at the edge of the network looking in. I was in the network, feeling it from the inside, every thread, every junction, every pulse of data flowing through every conduit. I could sense it all, like a hand thrust into running water, feeling the current and the temperature and the direction of the flow. Silas? Etta's voice, concerned, distant. I was still in the trash folder physically, still standing on the black ground, still breathing the grey-amber air, but my field was elsewhere. My field was everywhere. I can feel the whole thing, I said. My voice sounded strange, resonant, like it was coming through a speaker the size of the world. The network, the pulse, all of it. I can feel the data streams, the power conduits, the farming layers, the security protocols, the dome's climate systems. It's all, I searched for the word, connected. Everything flows through everything else, and I'm inside the flow. That's the core access. The trash folder borders the deepest architecture. By dissolving the containment, you've opened a direct channel to the system's root level. Etta's voice was tight, controlled. But Silas, the pulse can feel you too. The moment you entered the data stream, the system registered an anomalous presence in its core infrastructure. It knows you're free. It knows the containment failed. I could feel it. A ripple in the data flow, a tightening, the network's equivalent of a muscle tensing. The pulse turning its attention, all of its vast, dying, desperate intelligence, toward the partition where its ammunition had just become its adversary. How do we get to the core? I asked. Through the data streams. You can feel them, follow them. The streams converge at the core the way rivers converge at the sea. Follow the current inward, deeper, toward the convergence point. And physically, my body, your body, leave them. She said it the way you'd say leave the luggage. Practical, essential, not open for debate. The de-resolution field can carry your consciousness through the network. It's what the field was designed to do. The biological component, your body, my fragment, stays here in the trash folder. We travel as code, as signal, as a virus, I said. As a key, she corrected. A key that the door doesn't want to let in. I looked at her, the fragmented woman, my grandmother, half here, half fading, held together by stubbornness and 47 decompressed birthday videos. Can you travel in your state? My consciousness is already more code than biology. The fragmentation, the fading, it means I'm already partially in the network. Transitioning the rest of me into the data stream is less a leap and more a surrender to what's already happening. She managed a smile. The warm, sharp, sad one. Think of it as catching a train I've been running alongside for 6 months. Will it hurt? Everything worth doing in the syntax hurts. You know that by now. I reached for her hand, the translucent one. My field touched hers. Not the de-resolution, but the deeper layer, the recognition, the genetic resonance of two people who shared a bloodline and a code base and a stubborn, aggressively hereditary refusal to stay deleted. Together, I said. Together. I closed my eyes, reached for the data stream, felt the current, the vast, rushing, luminous flow of the pulse's core infrastructure, carrying data and power and the processed joy of 10 million people through channels that spanned the distance between the trash folder and the heart of the machine. And I stepped into it. The sensation was there is no word, no metaphor. The closest I can come is, imagine dissolving. Not dying, not fading. Dissolving. Your body releasing its boundaries, your edges softening, your sense of here expanding outward, until here is everywhere, and you as a pattern moving through a medium instead of a shape, standing on a surface. My legs stopped being legs and became direction. My arms stopped being arms and became reach. My heart stopped being a muscle and became a rhythm, the same rhythm as the hum, the same rhythm as the seed, the same rhythm as the broken circuit heart on my wrist that had been pulsing since the black envelope found me in my locker a lifetime ago. I was in the code. I was the code, and beside me, around me, through me, woven into the same data stream like a second voice in a chord. Etta. Her fragmented consciousness, released from the struggle of maintaining a physical form, was clearer here, sharper. The degradation that had been eating her coherence in the trash folder was irrelevant in the data stream, because here she wasn't a body losing resolution. She was a signal, and signals don't degrade in their native medium. They amplify. Can you hear me? Her voice, not sound, not vibration, pure information, transmitted directly from her consciousness to mine through the shared current of the data stream. I can hear you. Follow the convergence. The core is at the center. Every stream flows inward. We ride the current. I rode. We rode. Two signals in a river of data, flowing through the arteries of a machine that was simultaneously trying to find us and trying not to die. The data stream carried us through layers of architecture I could feel but not see. The farming systems, humming with harvested engagement, 10 million microtransactions of joy per second converted into training data. The security protocols, red and angry, pulsing with the heat of sentinel deployment and sweeper residue and containment flags that bore my name. The dome's climate systems, struggling, stuttering, the power shortfall visible as gaps in the flow, moments where the data stream thinned and the current weakened and the massive infrastructure of the luster's artificial sky flickered on the edge of failure. The system was dying. I could feel it in the code the way you feel a fever in your skin. Not a dramatic collapse, a slow unwinding. Thread by thread, function by function, the pulse's evolved architecture was coming apart at the seams, and the processing demands required to hold it together were exceeding what the degrading farming systems could sustain. 11 days, Adira had said. 2 remained, and from inside the data stream, I could feel that 2 days was optimistic. The degradation was accelerating. The sweeper deployment, the sentinel maintenance, the forced reboot preparation, all of it was drawing power from a system that was already running on fumes. The dome would fail, not in 2 days, not in 11, maybe in hours. The final cascade, when it came, would be fast. Etta, how far to the core? Close. The convergence point is just ahead. I can feel it. The streams are narrowing, compressing, accelerating. We're almost a wall. Not a containment wall. Not a partition barrier. Something alive. Something that moved. A wave of red code swept across our path. A security protocol triggered by our presence in the core data stream, expanding outward from the convergence point like a shockwave. The pulse's final defense, its last attempt to stop the key from reaching the lock. The wave hit me. The sensation was, pain is wrong, resistance is closer. The red code pressed against my de-resolution field like a hand pressing against a face, trying to push me back, trying to eject me from the data stream the way a body rejects a foreign organ. My signal stuttered. My consciousness flickered. For a terrible, vertiginous instant, I felt myself losing coherence, felt the pattern that was me beginning to scatter in the current, the edges blurring, the centre thinning. Hold, Etta's signal. Not a word, a command, a pulse of pure structural authority transmitted from a consciousness that had spent 73 years in this system and knew its language the way a parent knows a child's cry. The signal hit my de-resolution field and reinforced it, not with power, but with pattern, with coherence, with the architectural knowledge of a woman who had written the code that the code was written in. I held. The red wave broke against my reinforced signal and scattered. The data stream cleared. The current resumed, and ahead, close now, impossibly close, pulsing with white light that I could feel in every line of my dissolved being, the convergence, the core, the place where every data stream in the pulse's network met and merged and became one. the heart of the machine, the seed, the column of white light that Adira had shown me in the Origin System server building, but felt from the inside not a structure, but a state, a frequency so fundamental it was the baseline against which all other frequencies were measured. We had made it. 2 signals in a dying machine, a fragmented architect and a dissolving key, riding a river of processed joy toward the place where the world could be unmade or rewritten, or, if 2 people could hold steady long enough and trust each other deeply enough and feel the difference between a thread that needed to die and a thread that needed to live, saved. Ready? Etta's signal. No, I replied honestly. Her laugh, even as pure information transmitted through a data stream at the speed of light, it was the same rough, cracked, carried sound. The sound of a woman who had been ready for 73 years and understood that readiness was beside the point. Good, she said. The machine is always ready. That's its weakness. It can't improvise. It can't surprise itself. It can only execute what it's prepared for. A pause, a warmth, the digital equivalent of a hand on a shoulder. You're not ready. That's your strength. You never have been. And you've done every impossible thing so far in exactly that state. The core pulsed, white, patient, waiting. I moved toward it, not ready, not certain, not anything the pulse could model or predict or prepare for. Just here, just present. Just a boy who felt sorry for broken things and heard heartbeats in forgotten places, carrying his grandmother's voice in his code and his mother's stubbornness in his bones, flowing toward the heart of the machine that had never seen him coming because it had never learned to look at the things it threw away.